So I recently went thrifting and I got a chance to hit up a bunch of thrift stores that had kind of been on my list. So today I'll be walking you through my experiences, price points, the vibe, the atmosphere, and everything that I did pick up at the end. Let's get into it. So the first place that I got a chance to check out was the Salvation Army. I would say this one was definitely a much smaller Salvation Army. They didn't have like a big section for clothing. They also had some like little house decor stuff, plates, bowls, stuff like that. And their price points were pretty fair. As far as shirts, I think their price point started at about $9, and they were also doing sort of like a Black Friday deal for 50% off of everything in the store. They also had a pretty decent shoe like selection, neatly organized, which is something that I appreciate. I feel like one of the more overwhelming things about like thrifting at a larger scale is like walking into places and like everything's everywhere and it sort of feels overwhelming. So I did appreciate the fact that like everything was kind of neatly organized, and I think because this store was a little bit more of a smaller Salvation Army, they kind of had a little bit more control of like where things were and stuff like that. I do feel like when it comes to their shoes, we're a bit overpriced. I found a pair of Zara boots that were $50, which I feel like that's what Zara boots are priced at Zara. I didn't find a ton of stuff here, and I think a lot of that had to do with the location of where the Salvation Army was. There was a lot of like button-ups and a lot of like random t-shirt, like soccer t-shirts and high school t-shirts and things like that. I ended up trying this button-up, which I think was from the brand Timberland, and it was priced at $9.99. I do feel like I didn't really want to spend $10 on it. To me, it didn't really feel worth it. I really wasn't fully convinced. I think the selection of the clothing definitely could have been better, but it's a thrift store. You kind of get what you get. The next store that I got a chance to take a look at was Goodwill. This Goodwill was a bit bigger than, actually, no, I'd say it was a pretty average sized Goodwill. Their selection though was not great. I mean, I saw like Shein stuff in there, Fashion Nova stuff in there. Also their price points, I've noticed that Goodwill has like their price points have sort of gone up, considering that a lot of their clothes are also donated. The price points are a bit high. Like they were selling shirts and stuff like that for like $15 that like weren't really great quality, you know, polyester, acrylic, things like that. I did find a blazer that I wasn't mad about, but I also wasn't fully convinced. I do think it was a bit long and I just kind of felt a little bit awkward in it. I will say they did have a pretty large shoe collection or shoe option. I saw some pretty decently priced shoes in there and some like actually good leather boots, even though they weren't really in my size. Found some cowboy boots in there. I found some like nice Chelsea boots. As far as the shoe section, I'd say it was definitely better than the like clothing department, but I also feel like it's one of those things. I feel like with Goodwills, it's either hit or miss. You never know what you're gonna find just because it is more of a donation based situation and things aren't as curated. But I did want to check out this place, and I mean, I'm glad that I checked it out, but I don't think it's a place that I will definitely be going back to. The third place that I got to check out was Buffalo Exchange. I don't really find a ton of stuff there, and so I've kind of had this like bad, but just attributed like bad experiences to Buffalo Exchange. But I got a chance to check out this one. Honestly, I think this is a pretty decent Buffalo Exchange. They had, you know, from like designer stuff to, you know, your Zara, your H&M, vintage pieces, things like that. And I think everything was sort of reasonably priced. I think the lowest price point that I saw there was like $13, and I think it was for like a shirt, all the way up to like, you know, $60 and for like jackets and things like that. I would definitely come back to this Buffalo Exchange. I think that this store had a better curation of like different price ranges and also different brands and different styles as well. I got a chance to try on two sort of like button-up shirts. I think one of them was from Arc'teryx, and then the other one is like more of a vintage brand. I'm not really sure what it was. Both of them, or the vintage one was a bit longer, even though I liked, like, it was like a chore sort of jacket, and I kind of liked that style and have been looking for something similar. But I think the length was kind of throwing me off, and honestly, it was just a little too long. And I don't really like to do a ton of like cropping or alterations to my clothing. I've been really intense about the fit of things, and if it just doesn't fit right, then it's just not meant for me. So I ended up not getting that. And I did pick up this Architects blue shirt, just because, as I mentioned, I've kind of been wanting to have more button-up shirts and stuff like that. And I thought it would be like sort of a great addition to my already collection that I'm building. I think one of the things that has sort of maybe changed my perspective on thrifting has been working at like a secondhand clothing store. I think that when it comes to thrifting, especially when it comes to like having seen the full life cycle of clothing from like, when someone brings it in brand new to when it's been worn a couple of times, especially I think also living here in LA, there's a huge like thrift, flea market, swap meet, things like that. And, I've been to those and I've seen things like, t-shirts on their last leg, stains, rips, things like that being sold like for $100. And, while I think there are people for that and there are people who probably would be willing to pay that much, for me, it's just not something that I'd be willing to pay that much for. I think there's very few things that I'm willing to pay a lot of money for, because I feel like there is always sort of an alternative or like another more affordable option or route to sort of get the same thing. The other place that I also got to check out was Second Street, which is more of like a higher up than Buffalo Exchange. They carry a lot more designer, way more curated sort of secondhand shop. Opened a new location at Sherman Oaks, so I got to check out that location and just kind of see what they have in there. And I think since it's fairly new, they were some like $5 items. Now, they weren't like the greatest items or things that like, I really wanted. If you find something that is a steal, but the things that I did see there for that amount were not really worth it in my opinion. It was a pretty big store as well. They had a lot of different things in there, from like vintage, Japanese brands, like, there were like designer brands, Off-Whites, Acne Studios, things like that, brands that cost hundreds, if not like, a couple $1,000 pieces that they had for fairly decent price. And I mean, if those are brands that you love and, you're not like wanting to pay that much money, I think this is sort of like a perfect starting point, because you can get more of those high-end items without having to pay, $600, $400, $500. I didn't really buy anything from the store. I feel like Second Street for me is one of those places that I come to and I have sort of like a clear idea of what I want from there, just because everything is a little bit higher priced than maybe your Buffalo Exchange. And so they're purchases that like you really do have to kind of think about, because I think that's what you get when you go to a little bit more curated stores. You also do have to pay a little bit more than maybe if you were to find, a designer brand at your Buffalo Exchange or even at like a Salvation Army. Now, the last place that I checked out was Crossroads. I had some things that I needed to return to get something else that I wanted, so I made a return here, and then I ended up picking up some things. I didn't really get a chance to sort of browse around or anything like that, but the two things that I did pick up from here were this Jill Sander sort of boxy tee and then this Stussy tie. I've been getting into ties, which is something that's new for me, and I think it's just sort of an interesting, different accessory for me and wanting to sort of explore that more. Yeah, let's get into me showing you guys the things that I did pick up and potentially styling them. Now, this first outfit is super laid back, but still feels very put together. It leans more into a monochromatic look with the blue and the black, allowing more of the textures and shapes to stand out. I thought of this as a perfect casual date night outfit with the oversized boxy tee, keeping things nice and relaxed and easy, and these textured pants that I got from the brand Common Market, which I'll also link in the video. And I've made a video about these in my pants video, so definitely check that out. But I think it adds a bit of interest without trying too hard. I paired it with my Zara slip-on mules to keep things polished but also quite comfortable. The leather tote bag I think adds a nice pop of color and breaks up sort of the monochrome look that's happening, keeping the accessories pretty simple with some silver hoops to put it all together. Overall, it's super easy go to look for dinner, coffee, or whatever you're doing. Okay, so moving on to look number 2. I kept pretty much the same top half of the last outfit with this look because I wanted to show the difference between a daytime versus a nighttime look and how I would go about styling these. So this second outfit to me is really all about playing with proportions, which is what I think makes it perfect for more of a daytime look or a brunch or sort of a casual meetup. The oversized blue boxy tee brings again that slouchy sort of vibe. It's effortless, and then the baggy light wash jean sort of balances it out with the wider fit and rolled cuffs. I've also talked about these in my pants slash jean video, but these are the Free People cuffed boyfriend jeans, and they are amazing. The contrast between the crop length of the baggy jeans and the oversized top I think gives this outfit a little bit more dimension, but it also doesn't feel really bulky, which I really like. And I added the crossbody bag. This is the Uniqlo U Crossbody Bag, which it's simple. It just breaks up the silhouette, draws your eye somewhere else, keeps all the proportions sort of balanced. The mix of these loose shapes and little details sort of makes this outfit really pop. I think honestly, this second outfit might be my favorite. This next look is honestly one of my favorite, and this outfit to me just gives off a creative artsy vibe, which I think is perfect for, something like a gallery or museum day. It's structured enough and it also looks super polished, but also has like a casual feel to it, which I really appreciate. This Stussy graphic tie is of course more artsy, but also kind of streetwear, and I think it adds a bit more of a personal touch and makes this outfit stand out a little bit more. I liked how the roll cuffs of the jeans add a little bit more shape and also break up all the volume that's happening. I threw on this black beanie, which softened the looks and keeps it from feeling too dressed up. I think it adds like a cool laid back vibe, and of course some jewelry, little details that bring the outfit together. It's casual, intentional. It's something that works perfectly for any sort of creative setting. Now, this next look is a look I've worn before, but it's one of those outfits that just works. It's super practical and it almost feels like a uniform in the best way. The muted color palettes make it really easy to wear, especially for every day. And these black jeans are clean and simple, and they sort of help ground the whole outfit while still keeping the utilitarian feel. I changed out the shoes for the sneakers, which I feel like bring more of a functional, sporty vibe, and they're also really comfortable, which is always a win. The beanie I kept, and the only thing I changed out was adding the Uniqlo tote bag, which I feel like is just another practical finishing touch. Overall, it's an outfit that's easy and basically a go-to for me.